Hey there, chatters. I'm Nat.
And I'm Kat, and welcome to the Crime Chat. I'm your forensic femme fatale, Natalie is your true crime connoisseur.
We're just two normal girls obsessed with dark crimes, evil minds, and occasionally the unknown.
And
Sprinkle a little magic.
it's a little
Murder.
Yeah. Well, here's your disclaimer. The following Crime Chat contains adult content and descriptions of, violent scenarios today. Let's get into it. Yeah. So your listener discretion is advised.
And you have been warned. But before we get into today's Crime Chat, Kat, what have you done?
Well, I've still been sprinkling the magic of Once Upon a Time.
You don't like it.
I do like it. I just haven't had a whole lot of time to sit down and watch something.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling though I'm gonna because I'm committed. I will watch it. I just have a feeling I want to start it all I need to start it over and just binge it instead of piecemealing it. You know me, I'm a binger. So, looking past some of the acting, kind of the cheesiness of it, it's got a great story. It's super interesting and very creative in how they tied it all in together. So I'm up to the point where they found, I think maybe Sleeping Beauty, in the underground.
Okay.
So I'm kind of at that point, not really too far into it. But like I said, it's been trying to sit down and watch something lately has been interesting. Not a whole lot of time.
Yeah, it does have that cheese whiz level.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a daytime soap opera.
I'm not like a rom-com person. I don't get all the up in my feelings and everything. But kind of like a love story. Okay, this is the kind of love story that I can stomach.
Okay.
The Ones Who Live, the Rick and Michonne. Okay.
Yeah.
We are caught up on that. But those, again, are only coming out on Sundays. So, only coming out one episode at a time.
Right.
But, okay. Cat confession here. I
haven't had that in a long time.
I had a tear. It was that touching. But I was like, this is the kind of romance that I can stomach when it's surrounded by death and destruction. If there's an underlining love story, perfect.
Yeah. Right.
But it's fantastic. I mean, in how they ended this last episode, I literally went,
Really?
Yeah.
I gotta check that out.
What about you?
I started watching a documentary they called him Mostly Harmless. Have you heard of it?
I think I have, but I'm not sure what it's about.
It's pretty good. There was this body that was found along a hiking trail. Online, there was a group that started in order to solve the murder. Ended up doing this generated photo of him of what he would look like if he was of normal weight.
Yeah.
And he did. He looked like Prince Charming. He was a very handsome guy. So a bunch of women online were like, oh my God, he's so handsome. Look at those dreamy eyes. We got to find out who did this to him. The whole thing, right?
Oh.
They end up finding out who this guy was, and he was not a good guy.
Yeah.
He was a bad guy, and he was really bad towards women. And you had to see their faces not my guy, not the guy I'm it was that. It was that.
Looks aren't everything. I mean, come on. Just because somebody can look good doesn't mean they are good.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So superficial.
Very superficial, but they were very into trying to find his murder. Mm-hmm. I think somebody did have some solid evidence that came in to find who he was, but it's just they were living in this weird reality that they created for themselves.
Okay.
That this guy was this great human being.
Yeah.
And everybody loved him because he did run into people along the hiking trail, and everybody said, oh, he was really quiet. He was nice. Okay, but he was running. He was running from his problems, which was half of the time beating up his girlfriends.
Jeez. Cheese and crackers.
That's what I did.
Well, this is Chapter 2, Chatters, of the Darkness of Disney. Insert sparkles here. And for your intro this week, I thought I would go over a few, subtle hidden messages, subliminal messages that are popular in Disney movies. While Disney movies are very entertaining visual spectacles, both kids and adults can enjoy, there are some times based on fairy tales, but other than that, they can tell an entirely different story. Plenty of Disney movies have deeper messages, and with these psychological or philosophical meanings, they might not be so obvious to some viewers, but until they're made aware of, until like the fans are made aware of. Well, here are just a few. Snow White from 1937. Snow White is about a young woman who, after fleeing from her evil and murderous stepmother, is taken in by 7 friendly dwarves. She meets an untimely fate when she eats a poisonous apple, which her stepmother coaxes her to try while she was disguised as a serpent, aka an old hag. Snow White enters a death-like sleep, but is eventually awoken by the kiss of a prince. Snow White is similar to Adam and Eve's story in the Bible. In the Bible, Eve takes a bite from an apple in the Garden of Eden, and even though she is warned not to, like the forbidden fruit, in this act, so Genesis says, it leads to the birth of sin. And it is presumed that when Snow White takes a bite of the bite offered to her by the serpent, even though she was told not to talk to strangers, she does become aware of the evils in the world. Number 2, Peter Pan. 1953. Right. Everybody knows the story of Peter Pan as the one about the young boy who refused to grow up. I'll never grow up. Instead, he chose to live a happy, beautiful place known as Neverland, free of responsibilities, free of strife. However, he also suffers from the consequences of that, such as not being able to build mature relationships with others. The underlying meaning of Peter Pan is that growing up is a natural part of life and should be embraced. Living in isolation simply to avoid change and growth might prevent heartache, but it can also lead to resentment, bitterness, anger, and loneliness. Number 3 is Beauty and the Beast from 1991. Beauty and the Beast delivers a happy ending, for which Disney movies are so beloved, but for an adult viewer, is it really a happy ending? Many fans think not. Because Belle, her decision seems to be driven by Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome is described as a coping mechanism for people in captivity. People who are abused for a long time often develop positive feelings towards their abusers or captors. Because Belle is still a hostage when she falls in love with the Beast, fans are convinced that the story is not really as cute or romantic as it seems.
It's weird. It's a beast.
It is weird.
It's an animal.
Yeah. I think maybe part of that, too, is they fall in love, and when they kiss, he, like, turns into a human, right? She's still captive. Like, she was still captive the entire time. Number 4, Aladdin from 1992. In the scene where Aladdin, who is disguised as the prince, he goes up on his magic carpet to see Jasmine as she's, like, out on her balcony. He whispers something in the background. And fans believed that he whispered, "Good teenagers take off their clothes." Instead, according to Disney representatives, he says, "Come on, good kitty, take off and go." But Disney diehards don't buy this explanation. And then there's another scene in Aladdin where he's kicked out of a house that's full of beautiful women because he's poor. He can't afford to be in there. But if you dig a little deeper, it's probably a brothel. Yeah. And in this scene, it would explain why all the women are gorgeous and broke people are not allowed. Yeah. Number 5 is The Lion King from 1994. So Nala goes out to find help after Scar, his rule, ruins their home. She runs into the adult Simba, of course not realizing it is Simba at first. They fight, and then they're like, "Oh, it's you." They talk, they play, they nuzzle each other to Elton John's "Can You Feel the Love Tonight?" Now, as a child, this probably appeared to be sweet, an innocent moment between old friends. However, watching the movie as an adult, Nala was definitely giving Simba some of those bedroom eyes in that scene. Now, considering also the song choice and the fact that shortly after, they go back to Pride Rock, overthrow Scar, and then have a little baby cub, that scene might make perfect sense. And Timon was right. In the sweet caress of twilight, Simba and Nala.
Oh, that's creepy. Love. Oh, my God.
They did it.
Yeah.
They did the dirty. 2013's Frozen. Frozen is a sweet story, but there is one hidden message that maybe only adults will get. So, Anna and Kristoff are traveling together. He asks Anna about the size of Han's feet. To this, Anna responds, "It doesn't matter." And of course, it would appear those minds who are in the gutter catch the popular phrase, "That size doesn't matter."
Yeah.
And then the last one is Turning Red, one of Disney's newer movies from 2022. When Mylene is a teenager, she discovers that when she gets angry, she turns into a massive red panda.
That's adorable.
Yes.
Fuck it
The
up for me.
panda, however, is meant to
Oh, God.
symbolize that Mylene is getting older. She is maturing, and she's going through what you would say a change in her womanhood or menstruation. Turning Red is also about a mother-daughter relationship and the challenges that arise once young girls reach this pivotal age in their life. The symbolism goes even further to say the color red symbolizes luck, joy, and happiness in the Chinese culture. And those are just some of a few of the very many subliminal or underlining messages that have happened in Disney movies. So I get like the message and like the intent with Disney and stuff behind it. And I could see maybe younger kids not necessarily getting that. Like getting that turning into a red panda kind of symbolizes somebody, like a young girl getting her period for the first time. So like I get that. I don't know.
This episode is going to be Chapter 2, The Dark Secrets Behind the Man and the Magic, with a dash of murder at the end.
Yes.
Okay, so there's going to be a couple of parts to this story, and I will tell you that it's like 50 Shades of Disney because it's going to get darker and darker and darker. Yeah.
Ooh.
In the heart of a man emerged an imagination that would shape the world of entertainment forever. From humble beginnings of a small animation studio, the creation of a global empire would be born. Walter Elias Disney was born on December 5th, 1901 in Chicago, Illinois, to parents Elias Disney and mother Flora Disney. Elias Disney was born on February 6th, 1859 in Canada. He was of an Irish and German descent and grew up on a farm. He moved to the United States in 1878, seeking better opportunities. In 1888, Elias married Flora Call. Her name was Flora Call. She was born April 22nd, 1868 in Steuben, Ohio, not to be mistaken for Steubenville. Not Steubenville. She grew up on a farm and she loved nature and the outdoors. They had 5 children together: Herbert, Raymond, Roy, Walt, and Ruth. So there was one daughter, the youngest.
Oh, the baby.
Elias and Flora instilled a strong work ethic in their children and taught them the value of determination. Together, they created a loving and supportive environment for their children, firing them to pursue their dreams despite facing financial struggles as a family. Walt spent his early years in a modest home on Tripp Avenue in Illinois. This is where his imagination began to take flight. Despite the family's limited means, the young Walt found joy in the simple pleasures of life. As a child, Walt showed a natural talent for drawing and storytelling. He would spend hours sketching cartoons and creating characters inspired by the world around him. That's his childhood.
Like being at peace. Like, you know how you kind of go back to that? Like, yeah.
No Instagram.
No. There was a lake in one of the Five Finger Lakes where I was born in upstate New York that my grandparents owned property right on the lake, and we used to call it camp. Like, we'd go down to camp. And they actually named the road John Brown Road after my grandfather, even though they don't own the property and stuff anymore. It's just been in our family for a very, very, very long time. But we'd go down to camp, and, like, we had our own dock. And that was, for my childhood, anytime I go back to there, like, I always want to go out to the lake, and that's that's nostalgic for me. That's my Disney.
It's magic.
That's my magic.
Yes. Walt attended Benton Grammar School, where his teachers recognized his artistic abilities. However, his education was interrupted when his family moved to a farm in Missouri in 1906, which technically is not a bad thing because he liked the farm life.
Yeah.
Now, the farm would leave a lasting impression on Walt. It would inspire many of the themes of his works later on. In his teenage years, Walt worked as a newspaper delivery boy and honed in on his skills as a cartoonist for the school newspaper. At the age of 16, Walt dropped out of high school to enlist in the Red Cross Ambulance Corps during World War I. Roy, his brother, his older brother, served in the Navy during World War One as well, and later worked as a banker when he ended up being discharged. Although Walt at the time was underage to join, he was determined to serve his country. He actually lied about his age in order to join. So he was
Sure.
16. Now, after the
Yeah.
war, Walt returned to the United States and embarked on a journey to pursue his passion for animation. He found work as a commercial artist and eventually started his own animation studio, Laughogram Studios, in Kansas City. Ever hear of that?
It sounds very
It
familiar.
does,
Yeah.
right?
Laughagram.
Now, although Laughogram faced financial difficulties and eventually went bankrupt, it provided Walt with valuable experience and laid the foundation for his future success. In 1923, Walt Disney packed his bags and headed to West Hollywood, California, with dreams of making it big in the entertainment industry. Roy, his older brother, was also looking out for him, so he decided to go with him this time and like make sure that his little brother didn't bankrupt another company.
Yeah.
Roy was able to apply his knowledge as a banker to look out for him and handle all the finances. Roy and Walt founded the company Disney Brothers Studio in California in 1923.
That's right. They did their big 100 anniversary recently.
They must have, yeah.
Yeah, 100 years. Yeah.
So the Disney Brothers Studio would eventually become the Walt Disney Company as we know it today. After this, Walt got to work and he started creating, and in 1927, Disney began his first series of fully animated films featuring the character Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. A lot of people are not familiar with Oswald. Some people are. It's the original character that Mickey Mouse.
Of Mickey. Yeah.
It was Mickey wasn't a mouse. It was a rabbit. Unfortunately, he didn't own the rights to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Actually, Universal Pictures did. And in 1928, he was forced to move on because there was no way he can claim ownership. And they realized that, oh my God, he's onto something because Oswald was getting some traction.
Yeah.
Disney ended up going home and he went back to the drawing board and he just altered Oswald's appearance, a little tweak there, changed the little bunny into a mouse. And he ended up calling this new character Mortimer the Mouse. His wife said, no, Mortimer, that's a weird name. Call him Mickey. Just call him
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse. And he agreed. So in 1928, two silent Mickey Mouse cartoons, they were called Plain Crazy, and the other one was called The Gallopin' Gancho, and another movie that was more popular than both of those two, which was called Steamboat Willie,
Yes.
which is pretty cool. And
I know Steamboat Willie. Yeah.
Steamboat Willie was an immediate sensation. Actually, they all were. And masterpiece after masterpiece were created. Here are just a few of the highlights from Disney's extensive animation career. One, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in 1937. Next one, Pinocchio, 1940. Fantasia, 1940. This was a groundbreaking animated film featuring classical music accompanied by
Yes.
animated segments. This is when Mickey was like this wizard and
Yeah. I didn't realize Fantasia was from that long
he was ahead
ago.
of his time.
Wow.
Next
Yeah.
one, Dumbo in 1941. Ooh, real Bumbo. Next one, destroyed my childhood. Never get over it. 1942, Bambi was released.
You can call me Flower if you want to.
Yeah, oh, Dumper. Next one, 1950, Cinderella. Peter Pan in 1953, and then Sleeping Beauty in 1959. We just did the Sleeping Beauty in the first part of this Disney
Yeah.
series. Walt Disney realized that he had another dream to create a place where families could escape into a world of fantasy and imagination. He looked at his animation movies and he was like, what if I really can make this come to life, you know?
A whole new world.
A whole new world. On July 17th, 1955, the first theme park opened its doors to the public, and that was Disneyland in California. Fun fact, Walt only invited 100 of his friends and family to the opening
Really?
of Disneyland. Yeah.
Okay.
But somebody got a hold of some tickets and mass produced them, so like thousands of people showed up. He ran out of food, drink, all the rides were breaking within like an hour. But you know what Walt did? He just kept on
What?
going. He's like, thank you for being here.
Oh, good. Okay.
Just
Okay.
come back when the rides are working. It was funny. Unfortunately, Walt Disney would die from lung cancer on December 15th, 1966, at the age of 65.
Mm-hmm.
He had been a heavy smoker, which ultimately led to his diagnosis of lung cancer,
Mm-hmm.
which is sad because, like, he has not, I mean, we call everything Walt Disney, but he hasn't been around to see any of
I
this.
mean, 60 years? Almost
Yeah,
60
he hasn't been
years.
around.
Yeah.
A lot has happened.
Yeah.
So Walt left his brother Roy in charge of
Mm-hmm.
everything. Disney theme parks,
Yeah.
including Walt Disney World Resort in
Mm-hmm.
Florida,
Mm-hmm.
the Grand Poobah of
Yep.
Disney, which opened in 1971 and led to numerous other openings all over the
Mm-hmm.
world. For I love how Walt Disney's name gets attached to
Yeah.
everything, and the poor man did not really see any of his
Well,
success,
it's a
but his
brand now.
it's a brand,
Yeah.
right?
It's not a
Exactly.
person, it's a brand.
But when we think about it, Roy is the reason why that brand is so successful.
Yep.
So in 1971, Disney World cost $400 million and took 52 months to build. That's a huge
Yeah.
investment. Like that, if that investment fails, you're going
Yeah.
under. There's no
Yeah.
way. As we know, there's some backstory on Disney. Let's get into the darker side of this, okay? So, first of all, let's start with the land.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, most people don't realize how much land Walt Disney World actually
Mm-hmm.
encompasses. In fact, it's about 80 times the size of the entire nation of Morocco, twice the size of Manhattan, and the same size of San Francisco. So, when you say Walt Disney World is huge, like, you're not kidding. Like,
Yeah.
it's enormous.
So Walt Disney World is Orlando, Disneyland is California. Is that right? Or
Right.
am I okay.
Disneyland is not even worth mentioning. That's how small it is.
Oh,
Okay,
I've never been
like
to Disneyland, so
Disneyland to me is like Great Adventure from Jersey.
Okay.
Compared to what they built in Florida,
yeah, yeah.
Disney World is the big one. Walt Disney World is made up of 30,000 acres, and only
Huge.
1,100 acres are developed. So what you go to is technically made up of 4 theme parks, and it's only on 1,100 acres. All the rest of the acreage is just undeveloped. They just own it. They could do whatever the hell they want with it.
Because they're planning for the future.
Yeah. But why did they buy up so much land? Well, in early 1960s, Walt and the team of Imagineers, that's what they called themselves,
Yes.
including his brother Roy, embarked on a super secret endeavor known as Project X, later known as Project Florida, to search for the new location for a second theme park. They were looking for a lot of land, and they were looking for it cheap. They wanted to be near a major city with good weather and great highways and good infrastructure. It was actually reported that when Walt was on the plane crossing over the intersection of I-4 in Florida, like he said, oh yeah, that's the spot. I want all
Oh, there
that.
it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Walt Disney set up dozens of dummy corporations with names like MT Lot, like M.T.Lott.
Empty lot.
MT Lot.
Empty lot.
The other one was like Latin America Development or Reedy Creek Ranch Corporation, to purchase seemingly worthless parcels of land ranging from swamplands to cattle pastures. By May of 1965, they owned over 27,000 acres. Walt bought his first acre of land for $80, and by the end of it, he spent close to $80,000 for 1 acre. He was so committed to find
Yeah.
a huge, because there was nobody owned that much land altogether. No, you're not allowed to buy that much land as one person.
Well, that's why you made up these little
Right.
dummy corporations, right? To be
Yeah.
able to capitalize on that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's smart.
Smart.
How much was Walt and how much was Roy?
This was absolutely Roy.
Yeah.
All Walt did was point to it, said, I want that. And Roy's like, not a problem.
Done.
Done.
Don't ask questions.
But when this happened, of course, it's very like alarming to people who live in Florida. Like, why did this one man buy all this land?
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
news got out about this massive land grab, and Disney quickly scheduled a press conference. Like, he came out front and center about this. He didn't want the tabloids to get a hold of it. He said, yes, he is the drama. I did it. It was me.
I'm the
drama. And guess what, guys? I'm going to launch a new park that's going to help you and just add a little magic. So people are like, intrigued. No one's ever done that before. With that said, the governor at the time, not this governor, but the old governor,
not DeSantis.
We're not DeSantis. He's like, all right, this sounds good. This is a huge revenue stream of money coming in. So I don't blame this governor to be like, okay, let's work with you a little bit.
Yep. Bring it on.
Yeah, and with this $400 million project, that would become the Walt Disney World in exchange for bringing such a boost into the entire area's economy that created thousands of jobs and made huge improvements to the environment and the infrastructure of Florida. Disney was given the permission to establish their own government, known as the Reedy Creek Improvement District. This quasi-government gave Disney the ability to create their own building codes, its own zoning and planning of roads and bridges, and create their own residential communities. There's a lot there, and there's a lot going on right now with Disney versus DeSantis in Florida. I'll cover that on an update. We're going to cover that on an update because it's still going.
Yeah.
So moving along, we're going to go into the movies. Disney, not so family friendly, lesser known facts about the movies, the parks, and some of the cover-ups. Before we get into the murder, let's get into a little bit of the darker side. Number one. Now, you mentioned The Lion King before, because The Lion King has a couple of shady little facts about it. So there's a cut in The Lion King when Simba falls down on like this rock and dust flies up into the air, and then it ends up spelling the word sex.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes. Another
one is The Little Mermaid. There used to be a penis on the cover of the movie.
Yes.
Next one, Escape from Tomorrow horror movie. Apparently, there was a movie that was completely made inside the borders of Disneyland without anybody knowing.
Oh.
From beginning to the end. Like, there was everything. Yeah. And they just used the public and the parks as just like background.
Yeah.
Next one. No one dies at Disney. Nah. This one is a common phrase heard when it comes to Disney.
Yes.
If someone technically dies on the property at Disney, they don't call the death until whoever is dead actually gets removed from the premises. Right. In fact, Disney doesn't allow anybody to die.
Like off of their jurisdiction.
Yeah. So like if you're dead in Epcot, the ambulance is going to come get you.
The Disney ambulance.
They're going to pretend to... Good point. The Disney ambulance is going to come get you, pretend to resuscitate you until you're off of their property. Then they'll be like, he dead.
Yeah.
She dead.
Yep. Nobody dies at Disney.
Nobody dies at Disney.
No.
Yeah. Next one. Why are there no moms in the classic Disney movies?
Oh.
Well, Walt Disney was very close to his mother.
Yeah.
When Walt received his first hit of fortune, all this money, he ended up buying his mom this beautiful house. And after a while, she started to complain to him that there was a smell of gas in the house. So Disney, thinking that he had employees to fix all this stuff, he sent over Disney employees saying, just help her whatever way you can. You know, Disney plumber, Disney this, Disney that. And mom ended up dying of asphyxiation due to the gas. Disney held himself responsible because he did buy the house that his mother died in, and he felt that he didn't properly handle the issue.
So there's all the moms die in the Disney movies because he's got mommy issues.
He's got mommy issues.
He's got guilt.
Yeah. He's got guilt. The next one. The death of Debbie Stone. Now, there are a few deaths when it comes to Disneyland, but none creepier or mysterious than this death. Apparently, she is the sole death of Disney cast members at Disneyland.
Yeah.
We're going to get into a couple of things that Disney hides. She also died in a very horrific way that left people scratching their heads, thinking whether it was an accident or maybe it was negligence on Disney's part. Maybe that's why they were hiding it. Debbie Stone was accepted into Iowa State University, and in order to save money, she ended up applying to Disneyland, getting a job as a hostess. One of the major rides at Disney at the time was called a Carousel of Progress, which was redesigned to become a new attraction called America Sings. And on June 28th, 1974, it launched. And she was working there. She was one of the hostesses. I don't know if you've ever seen these type of stages. It's like this big wheel. So like you're sitting in this in your seat but the stage is spinning in front of you, and
Yes.
each
Yeah.
segment is like a part of the scene.
Right, right.
So that's basically what she was helping out with. She was greeting guests when they came in. She was saying have a good night when they left. What ended up happening at night is that one of the patrons sitting in actually the neighboring theater, not in that theater, heard a blood curdling scream.
Oh, gosh.
And once everybody left, they ended up looking for Debbie, and Debbie was literally crushed between the spinning wheel and the wall.
Oh, my
Crushed
gosh.
her. Next one. Disney created a very popular Lemmings myth. This one is honestly horrific and makes absolutely no sense. In 1958, Walt Disney produced White Wilderness, True Life Wilderness Adventures with a segment on the lemmings. They detailed their strange compulsion to commit mass suicide. The big problem here is that people who actually knew these animals realized that the lemmings do not commit mass suicide. That is a complete myth. Eventually, people launched an investigation into it because they were like, "Where did you get this footage? Like, what's happening here? This
Right.
is not something that happens."
Right.
And it was confirmed that Disney filmmakers were throwing lemons off of cliffs. If you watch the 1958 White Wilderness documentary, you can literally see these poor creatures like being shoved off of the cliff or hanging for dear life while they're being thrown off. And then Disney added like some creepy ass cartoon sound effects for their fall. Why would you do something like that to poor animals?
And no, that's exactly what
Yeah.
I was thinking. Like, why would you like capitalize on that?
They created the whole situation.
I know. Yeah.
Kill, murder, mass murder of these poor animals.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Pedophiles in Disneyland. Since 2006, 35 Disney employees have been arrested and accused of sexual crimes involving children. This is only in Disneyland. I'm not talking about Disney World. That's a whole other shit show. Okay? So in 2012, aboard the Disney Dream Cruise Line, cruise member employee followed an 11-year-old girl into an elevator. Now, there is video evidence of this happening. Disney did not report it. Instead, they ended up waiting an entire day before mentioning that it happened. Most people, including the FBI, assumed that they were attempting to try to make it disappear.
Yeah.
And the man in question was on a work visa, and he actually admitted to the FBI. And instead of him going in to be arrested or detained at that point after his confession,
Yes.
Disney ended up taking him back to India and said, "Bye.
Be gone.
See you later. You're not our problem anymore."
Swept under the rug. What about the child? What about the victim? Like, what about the victim's family?
I guess this is one of the problems with having a quasi-government is that even the FBI is like dumbfounded. Like, we have his confession.
Yeah.
Like, all you had to do was release him on land because they were still out on sea. Like, you need to bring him back. Instead of bringing him back, they ended up bringing him someplace else. So, moving along. Now, let's get into the man, Walt Disney himself.
Yes.
Okay, before we get into the murder, let's have a little insight onto this man, on the negative, the darker side of this man. Okay, so. Question. Was Walt Disney an anti-Semite? Was he a racist? Was he a sexist? And a bunch of other dark things, Kat.
I'm going to say yes. Just by that.
To all of them?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's chat about it. Number one, was Walt Disney an anti-Semite? Well, there's the famous Three Little Pigs scene, which the wolf was portrayed as a Jewish peddler. The scene was later reanimated in order not to appear that way. Then in 1938, Disney personally welcomed the Nazi dictator Leni
Riefenstahl.
He welcomed this dude to his studio and gave him the personal tour. So, I don't know. Jews who worked there at the time said it was hard to find anyone who thought that Walt Disney was an anti-Semite. I don't know. I think you can't really rub elbows with a Nazi and come out clean.
Yeah.
Whatever. Anyway, regardless, it just doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So number two, was Walt Disney a racist? Well, here's some evidence. These charges stem primarily from the use of the racial stereotypes in Disney movies from the 40s, such as Dumbo's Black Crows, Fantasia's Black Servants, and The Song of the South, a movie so offensive that the Disney company will no longer let it be seen in public. Never seen that movie. Don't know. Disney anticipated the Song of the South controversy and attempted to make it less racist with a rewrite and a meeting with the NAACP. the meeting never happened, and the movie was released anyway. There was also some controversy about the company's unwillingness to hire minorities at Disneyland. Yes, these are hard to hear, but they are facts, okay?
Yes, yes.
Another one.
Ugh.
Was Walt Disney a sexist? Some associates thought that Walt Disney didn't particularly like women. He didn't trust women or cats. That's what it says.
What about the Aristocats movie?
I don't know. And also, there is a famous letter sent from the Disney company in 1938 informing an applicant that women do not do creative work. So, I have the letter here for you. I'm going to read it. All right.
Oh.
Here it is.
Oh, I don't want to hear it.
Dear Miss Ford, your letter of recent date has been received in the inking and painting department for your reply. Women do not do any of the creative work in connection with preparing the cartoons for the screen, as that task is performed entirely by young men. For this reason, girls are not considered for the training school. The only work open to women consists of tracing the characters on a clear celluloid sheets with India ink and then filling in the tracing on the reverse side of the paint according to the directions. In order to apply for a position as inker or painter, it is necessary that one appear at the studio bringing samples of pen and ink and watercolor work. It would not be advisable to come to Hollywood with the above specifically in view, as there are really very few openings in comparison with the number of girls who apply. Yours very truly, Walt Disney Productions, Ltd.
So what he's saying is, well, from what they're saying is girls don't know how to color in the lines.
Right. So, well, that's all we're allowed to do is color in the lines on celluloid paper, whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah.
In 2014, Meryl Streep called this letter out on stage at the National Board of Review Awards to honor Emma Thompson for her role in Saving Mr. Banks. The actress blasted Walt Disney Company, calling them, she called Walt Disney himself a sexist and an anti-Semite. I think that's where this all comes from also. Like, I think she kind of, the flames. Yeah. Next one, was Walt Disney an FBI informant? So, in 1993, Hollywood and the Dark Prince published documents alleging that Disney reported to the Bureau for 26 years. The New York Times deemed the documents authentic, but the Disney family then denied all the reports. Of course they did. And the book had since later been discredited, I guess because of Disney's input. I don't know. Next one. Was Walt Disney cryogenically frozen? Okay. And was his body stored in a chamber underneath Disneyland's Pirates of the Caribbean ride? Gasp. Okay, so 2 mostly discredited biographies. They're discredited. I don't know, but we're going to say it anyway. Okay. They claim that Disney expressed an interest in cryogenics before his death. Then his family held a private funeral. Somehow they're thinking the Frozen story sprung up from here because his body wasn't able to be viewed. Okay. It's like the Michael Jackson thing. Michael Jackson's not dead because his coffin was closed.
Because we don't believe it, because that they're not in there. Yeah.
Sometimes it's his whole body. Sometimes it's just his head that got frozen. Like, the story goes here and there. And we all know it's probably false. And now that we're talking about body parts, let's get into the murder. You ready?
Yes.
You ready for our crime chat? All right. Well, today we're going to head into celebration. The word celebration refers to an act of observing a special event, occasion, or achievement with festivities, joy, and enthusiasm. But we are not talking about the meaning. Oh no, we're talking about the place. Celebration, Florida is a master planned community located near Orlando. It was developed by the Walt Disney Company and opened to the public in 1996. Celebration was designed as a nostalgic town evoking the charm of small-town America with its tree-lined streets, its front porches, its vibrant town center. It's about bringing the residents into the movies, living this hallmark lifestyle.
The dream.
Now, if every man was a prince from, like, Scotland, I'd be there. But they're not.
There is no such thing as a prince.
But in the Hallmark movies, that's all you get. It's like this prince coming. He's tortured. He's like, oh, my God, I don't want to be a prince. And then he meets this girl from a vineyard, right? And she works at a wine shop. And she's like, oh, my God, my life is so...
That's one of the movies that we literally watched last weekend. they see each other, they don't like each other.
No,
and
yeah.
then
They always don't like
they end
each
up
other.
falling in love with each other.
Right.
And, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it's like this. It's always the same formula. It's like
Yeah.
she's got to prove she's a little bit of a boss, then she's got to soften up and show him that he could. Like it's just like, oh my god, like
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't do it.
Come up with something original, Hallmark.
All right, so at the heart of Celebration sits the town center, and this has the shops, the restaurants, the cafes, the entertainment venues.
Yep.
The
Yep.
architecture in the town center is reminiscent of a classic American town with colorful buildings, brick-lined streets, and cozy storefronts. Celebration has parks, playgrounds, walking trails, sports fields, and community pools. Residents can enjoy outdoor activities and events throughout the year, including concerts, farmers markets, and festivals. When this place opens up for Christmas, it literally looks like a Hallmark movie. Like, it's that cheesy. It's that level cheese whiz.
Some people love that.
You know what this reminds me of, though? This literally reminds me of The Truman Show. Have you ever seen The Truman Show?
Yes.
This is The Truman Show. Like, everything is planned, scripted for you. You just have
Celebration is the Truman Show.
It truly is.
Yeah.
This community also has a highly rated public school system from K to 12. Overall, Celebration Florida offers residents a unique blend of modern living and small town charm, making it a desirable place to live for families, retirees, and anyone seeking a close-knit communities and atmosphere. Today, we dive into the Celebration resident, the story of Anthony Tote, the family annihilator, and he also killed his friggin' dog, too.
Gosh.
Anthony Tote was born on June 22nd, 1974, and he grew up in Connecticut. Tony, we're going to call him Tony. He thrived in high school. He was voted most likely to succeed in high school. He was the class president in his junior and senior year. He was extremely popular. He was well loved, and he worked really, really hard at everything. And then when he was in college, he met his soulmate, Megan. It was like a match made in heaven. They were both going to the same school. They were actually studying the same thing. They were becoming physical therapists. And then they just decided to get married out of school and start their own physical therapy business together. A family practice. People would say that Tony was very kind, helpful, and took very good care of his patients. Megan also had an amazing reputation for being a great PT. She was also teaching yoga in their small community, and they were basically like celebrities up there. They would also treat disabled children in their spare time. Tony volunteered as a coach, and basically the community said, yeah, they were the perfect couple. They were truly, really givers in their community. When Megan got pregnant with their first child, Alec, they were also so excited about this. And then soon after that, they had their second son, Tyler. And Megan decided that she was going to be a stay-at-home mom and school their children. Tony at this time was going to run the business. Now, this is all happening in Connecticut. We're not in Florida yet, okay? They were so successful that they actually opened more than one location because they had so many clients that were referring friends over to them because they were like, these people are great. They're family, oriented.
Right.
It's just a great couple. They decided to start snowbirding because they wanted to get out of the cold. Connecticut gets pretty damn cold, freezing temperatures. And they decided to take the kids to Florida to escape that weather. And they enjoyed trips to Disney and the beach and all that good stuff.
All that Florida has to offer.
Yes. And they decided to get a condo in Florida so they could spend more time down there. So, like, at this point, they're official. They're renting a place in Florida, and they have their business up north. And part of the year, they're down here. The other part, for money, they go up there. For vacation, they come down here. And they literally have two separate residences. Now, Tony promised himself that he was going to be a better father than his own.
Okay.
Even though everything seemed to be picture perfect, Tony had a deep, dark secret that he was not willing to share with anybody just yet, but it's going to come out.
Okay.
See, in 2010, when Tony's estranged father reached out to him on Facebook because he did not have a relationship with his dad, his father wanted to meet up with him and talk to him, and this is the secret that this is the moment that kind of triggered him going back into that little dark place in his head about what he's been like just compressing and
Right.
beating down in his soul and not telling his wife what happened and all that stuff. So the secret that he had been hiding is that when Tony was 4 years old, his father, Robert Tote, hired somebody to kill his mother. Robert Tote was also known in the community as being the perfect man, a family
Image.
man. Everybody
Image.
loved
Yes.
him. Yeah. Tony's parents, Robert and Loretta, were considered in their community to be the perfect couple. They had perfect children. Tony being the oldest, and then his younger sister, Chrissy. Robert was a good provider for his family, volunteered to help with disabled children, just like Tony, and was known as a loving father to his 2 children. What everyone in Loretta did not know is that Robert was actually having not 1, but 2 affairs. One with a 17-year-old nurse. Robert still denies this to this day, actually. So allegedly, he hires a mentally disabled 19-year-old boy named John, offered him $800 to shoot his wife. Okay, so that's the crime.
Oh, he was taking advantage of somebody who didn't understand the consequences. Oh.
The guy that he hired, he got scared and he ran back to Robert and he said, I can't do it. And Robert gives him the keys to his house. He's like, oh, you can't do it? Okay, well, I'll make it easier for you. Here's the key to my house. I'm going to stay out with my girlfriend. You're going to go to my house. You're going to shoot my wife in her bed tonight. I'm going to be at my girlfriend's. John ended up saying, okay. So that night, John went to the house, went into the bedroom while Loretta was sleeping, and shot her in her face. She lived.
Wow.
But the poor 4-year-old Tony heard his mom screaming, and he ran down the hallway, and he saw this big man with a gun running past him down the steps, and all he could hear was his mother screaming. I mean, she just had been shot in the face.
Yes.
Yeah. Who do you think called 911?
Tony?
Yeah, 4 years old. Like, this definitely did something to him. She was rushed to the hospital, and then the investigation started, and they ended up finding out that the husband was out with his mistress, and obviously he becomes the main suspect. Robert gets charged with attempted murder, and John testifies against him. John gets 4 years and Robert gets 10 to 20.
Oh, wow.
During this whole thing, Loretta stuck by his side the whole time. She did not believe that he could do this. Later on, obviously, her opinion changed and she divorced him, took the kids, and went far, far away. And since then, Tony had not seen his father.
A very long time.
Right. Probably triggered a lot of stuff. But when people asked about this, like Megan's family and other people that knew him as an adult, nobody knew that this happened to him. He just put it down.
Way deep down in Pandora's box and just locked that shit up. Yeah.
So he decides, you know what? It can't hurt to see my father. Maybe I can kind of have some closure. So he ended up going to meet his father, and he went a couple of times, but then he decided, no, this isn't good for me, and he ended up cutting off all contact again.
Okay.
In 2015, Tony and Megan had a baby girl, so now they have 3 children. They continue their perfect life together. They would continue to snowbird, and during one of these trips, Tony said that while we were out in Florida, Megan got bit by a bug, and from that point on, she contracted Lyme disease.
Yes.
And she got super sick. He started saying because of this, she started becoming super crazy about being organic and I gotta figure out home remedies and all this stuff. And she started speaking to a medical medium. This is when Tony said that Megan started acting weird. She started to change. She started to become obsessed with the end of the world.
Oh.
She started talking about needing to take her children's lives, like things like that. Now, we don't know if she said this. This is what Tony said. So in 2018, things started getting really bad at the business. The checks for the employees started to bounce.
Ooh.
People loved the totes so much that they actually kept on working even though the checks were not clearing. They were just like, it's okay, he's got clients, we have to take care of them. They're away in Florida, they're vacationing, but we're going to keep their business up and running. They love them so much.
Yeah.
What ended up happening is Tony was taking out different types of loans with high interest rates, and then he started doing his own billing, medical billing, and clients started getting bills from their insurance agency about like family physical therapy appointments that never happened.
Oh.
And this kind of triggered an investigation into fraud.
Yeah.
Now, during this time, Megan and the kids were down in Florida, and they had no idea this was going on. The FBI investigator ended up scheduling an appointment with Tony, and he went to talk to him. And Tony was like, you know what, this is all a big misunderstanding. It was a typo. The FBI was like, yeah, I don't think so. Like, no, that's not what happened. And he probably has dealt with people like this before, so he knows.
Yeah, nice try.
So he's like, you're going to jail. He gave Tony instructions. I'm going to give you 2 weeks. Get your stuff together. Tell your employees that they need to find other work. Close your doors. He actually gave him like the benefit of the doubt to get, because he's a white collar criminal, so he didn't think he was going to run, and he was so well known in the community, he didn't think it was a problem.
Yeah.
He's like, just get your stuff together, and we're going to take you into custody on this date. So he packed all his stuff and he hopped on the plane to Florida. It's December 2019. It's believed Megan picked him up from the airport when he arrived. And not long after that, a text message was sent from Megan's phone, her Aunt Cindy, saying that they need to cancel Christmas by her because they were going to go to St. Augustine instead. This was odd because it was a family tradition to spend this holiday together. And Cindy was concerned. She texted Megan a bunch of times to say hi, to see what was going on, and then she started to call her, but there was no reply. Megan never answered the phone, and Cindy started to worry. She received a text message from Megan's phone stating the whole family had the flu and they're okay. At this point, it was getting closer to Christmas. So Cindy's like, all right, you had the flu, but we're talking about it's 2 weeks later and Christmas is coming up and I want to see the family. And who the hell is thinking that somebody's dead?
Yeah.
Like, you're just thinking like, all right, my plans are important too. Like I want you to be
sorry
included.
you feel sick. Are you going to be better?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm expecting you, you know, like
like the nosy aunt does.
Most Aunt Cindy's will do that, you know? So Cindy was calling Chrissy, who is Tony's younger sister. Same thing. Like, nobody was answering their phone. So now Tony's younger sister and Aunt Cindy are like, all right, something's wrong here. Now it's been weeks. Tony texts his sister and said, Megan lost her phone. Everyone has the flu. So don't call and we'll talk to you soon. Nobody heard from anybody after that.
Of course. Yeah. That was just to get him off his back for however long.
So on December 29th, Aunt Cindy got super nervous and she ended up calling the police and she requested a welfare check. And the sheriff's office, I guess the Celebration Sheriff's Office, said, okay, we'll go over there and check it out. Well, when they got there, lights were all on, but nobody was there. So the cops ended up leaving, thinking that there was just nobody home and nothing looked out of place. You're in Celebration, Florida. What's going to look out of place? Everything's going to be perfect.
What can go
right,
wrong?
Exactly. So on January 10th, another welfare.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's 2
right?
weeks.
So on January 10th was the second welfare check, and it was called in by Cindy again, and they went to the door, and once again, they were like, well, nothing really looks out of place here. So they left, Kat. Celebration. Nothing can go wrong. What could go wrong? It's celebration. On January 13th, the FBI came ready to knock down the door because they weren't even worried about anybody else. They were just like, you're going to jail for fraud. We're not the local police department. We're FBI. We're coming to get you, kicking and screaming. The cops showed up at the door with them to, I guess, assist them. And once again, nobody answered. They jiggled the handle, but this time the door just opened on its own. They could smell the foul smell consistent with a dead body. Could hear somebody upstairs, like kind of like scurrying around. And they began to call out, hey, Tony, is that you? Come downstairs. Where's Megan? Where are the kids? They were just calling out for anybody. They saw him upstairs in like a fog. And then the FBI agent walked over to him and was like, hey, sit down. Like, sit on the step. Don't come any further. Just sit down on the steps. Police at that point were like, well, he's not the only person that's supposed to be here. We need to search for the wife and the kids. They started their search. There's a video of this too, the body cam. When he sat down on the steps, the cops are like, all right, we're going to look for the family. And he's just like, you could tell he's just not there. Like, he's just like, oh, the family, oh. And the smell was terrible. They ended up finding Megan and they found the kids, but they were no longer alive. all 4 of them, were in the master bedroom in the king-size bed, along with the dog. And the dog's name was Breezy.
Aww.
They were all covered up with blankets, and it was very clear that they had been dead for weeks.
Yeah.
Tony had been living in the house with them for weeks. When the cops got there, they also noticed that there was an eviction notice on the front door.
Yeah.
So, not even paying for the Florida place. He confessed everything when he was being interrogated. First story was like, I killed them. Then he was like, I didn't kill them. My wife killed them. I was just trying to cover up for her. He said that his wife actually was the one that took the children's lives. And he said that they had this plan for a murder-suicide where she would take the kid's life, then she would take her life, and then he would take his life. And they would all kind of check out together.
Yeah.
But then he said that he chickened out. Like, she went through with the plan, and then he chickened out because then he realized, like, oh my God, like, everybody's dead. Now, we don't know if she did have some sort of thought of this, of the end of the world and, you know, all this stuff. We don't know if she had some type of mental health issues. We do think that he had a psychotic mental break. The autopsy revealed the cause of death for all the family members. They had a ton of Benadryl in their system, as well as him. So I guess some part of the story is true where he thought it was all gonna be together. In one of his confessions, he said that his 4-year-old daughter, after he gave her Benadryl, he ended up rolling over on top of his 4-year-old baby girl, so she can suffocate. So that's how she ended up dying, being crushed by her father's weight.
That's horrible.
It's terrible.
Because you feel everything. You feel her last breath.
Yeah,
Oh,
sick.
God.
In the autopsy, one of the children, one of the sons, as well as the dog, as well as the wife, also had been stabbed. He also stated that he was crawling into the bed with them every night and sleeping with them. There's that. He was found guilty. The judge said that he is a destroyer of worlds. Tony ended up getting 4 life sentences for the murder of his wife and his children, and then another year for animal cruelty of the dog. While in jail, he wrote his father a 27-page letter about the crime. On this letter that he wrote his father, 27 pages, basically of what was wrong with his life. So confessing in a way, I think, to get maybe some of his father's approval.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. He was, 4 when that happened? When the attempted...
Yeah.
I mean, you as a 4-year-old, it's almost natural without any intervention to blame yourself. It's my fault my daddy tried to kill my mommy.
Yeah.
And that probably, built and resonated with him for years and years and years. Even though he tried to lock it in that old Pandora's box. I mean, that sucker always creeps his little way out.
So we need to do a crime chat at Celebration Florida.
Okay.
We gotta go.
Crime
we
chat.
just gotta go.
On location.
On location. Celebration Florida.
On location in Celebration.
So that's my story, Kat. So we went through Disney, Walt Disney himself, and we did one murder case in Disney, and that'll wrap up number 2.
So is Celebration technically in that 80 or however 30,000 acres or whatever that they bought? Is Celebration inside of that?
It's the quasi-government.
Oh, okay.
So there it is.
Thanks.
Well, we don't want to leave you hanging. So for more on this case, please check out After That Crime Chat, only available on our Patreon.
But don't forget to follow us, Crime Chat with Nat and Kat, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and X. See what we got going on.
Remember Crime Chat with Nat and Kat. When you become a VIP chatter to our Patreon, you'll have access to bonus episodes, behind the scenes, bloopers, and free merch. And check out some merch in the works.
Yes, and be sure to check out our next episode. We're going to go from Disney to cult. I mean, Disney could be considered a cult, but from one cult to the next.
cult. Oh, you don't want to miss it.
No, you're not going to want to miss it. We'll see you next time, chatters. Bye.